I was working as a Canadian Border Services officer at a land crossing. A car with Ohio plates pulls up, and the driver, a man in his 40s, hands me his driver's license. I asked for his passport. He looked at me, genuinely confused, and said, "Why would I need that?" "I'm just going to Canada, not a foreign country." I tried to explain that Canada is, in fact, a foreign country. He got angry, insisting, "Look, it's right there on the map above my country. It's not like I'm crossing an ocean. This is basically just North America." My license should be enough. He had to be turned away, and he spent 5 minutes arguing that we were violating his rights as an American. My family hosted an American exchange student from a rural state. One night, we were all watching the news, and a segment about the Prime Minister of Australia came on. The student turned to my dad and asked, "Wait, I thought the President of the United States was the leader of all the countries. Why does Australia have a different guy in charge?" We spent the next hour trying to explain the concept of national sovereignty. He just couldn't grasp that the US president's authority ends at the US border. He thought other leaders were like state governors, who ultimately reported to Washington, D.C. I was a barista in a small cafe in Vienna, Austria. An American couple came in, and the man ordered a coffee. I replied in English, "Of course, how would you like it?" He looked relieved and said to his wife, "See? I told you they learn our language for the tourists." Then he turned back to me and asked, "So, what's the main language you guys speak here when we're not around? Is it Austrian?" I politely explained that the official language is German. He scoffed and said, "German? But Germany is like a whole other country away. That makes no sense at all. You should have your own language." While working at a hotel in Paris, I had an American guest call the front desk in a panic. She said her power adapter wasn't working and that our outlets had the wrong shape. I tried to explain that France uses a different voltage and plug type. She cut me off, saying, "But why? We invented electricity in America, so our plugs are the correct ones. It's incredibly inefficient for every country to make up their own weird outlets. You'd think for a major city like Paris, you'd upgrade to the American standard. It's just better business." She demanded we rewire her room immediately. I was on a guided tour of the Roman Forum. An American man in the group kept asking the guide questions that left everyone speechless. He pointed to the ancient ruins and said, "This is all very impressive, but why did they build it all broken? Didn't they have the technology to finish the buildings?" The guide, a patient Italian historian, tried to explain that these structures were thousands of years old and had fallen into ruin over time. The American shook his head and muttered to his son, "See? This is what happens when you don't have good American construction standards." A total waste. My friend is a flight attendant. On a flight to Sydney, Australia in the middle of December, an American passenger called her over. He pointed out the window and said, "Excuse me, the in-flight map says it's summer in Australia right now, but my calendar says it's December, which is winter. Is your map broken?" My friend explained the concept of the southern hemisphere and opposite seasons. The man argued with her for several minutes, insisting that December is universally winter. He concluded, "Someone is lying, and I'm pretty sure it's the airline." I was managing a bookstore in London. An American student came to the counter with a copy of George Orwell's 1984. He asked me, "Is this book in English?" I looked at the cover, then back at him, and said, "Yes, George Orwell was an English author." He replied, "Okay, but is it like American English?" American. I don't want to have to translate all the weird words like lorry or flat. Can't you guys just publish a version that's been properly translated for us? It would sell so much better. He was completely serious about needing a translation from English to English. I met an American couple while hiking in the Swiss Alps. They were amazed by the scenery. The woman asked me, "Who owns these mountains? Is it a private company?" I explained that they are natural formations, part of the country. She then asked, "So, who is in charge of turning on the waterfalls every morning? It must be a very difficult job to get the timing right. Do they turn them off at night to save water?" I just stared at her, unsure how to explain that waterfalls are not, in fact, operated by a switch. A dialogue I witnessed at a currency exchange in Tokyo. American tourist: "I need to get some Japanese money." Clerk: "Of course, sir. How much US dollar would you like to exchange for Japanese yen?" Tourist: "Why is it called yen? Why not just the Japanese dollar? It would be so much less confusing. And why is the exchange rate so weird? $1 should equal one of whatever you call it. It's just simpler. You guys should really fix that." The clerk just smiled and nodded, but his eyes screamed for help. I was working at a tech support call center. A man from the US called in, complaining that his new laptop, which he had brought with him on vacation to Italy, couldn't connect to the internet. After some troubleshooting, I realized he was trying to connect to his home Wi-Fi network from his house in Arizona. I explained that Wi-Fi has a limited range. He became irate. "What do you mean? It's the World Wide Web. It should be everywhere. Are you telling me my Wi-Fi doesn't work in the whole world? This is false advertising." An American tourist walked into the pub I work at in Dublin and ordered an Irish car bomb. My manager, a very large and very patient man, went over to his table. He explained, "Sir, given the history of this country and the meaning behind those words, we don't use that name here. I can get you a half pint of stout with a shot of whiskey and cream on the side." The tourist rolled his eyes and said, "Oh my God, you people are so sensitive. It's just a drink name. It's not my fault your history is so depressing. Just make the drink." He was promptly asked to leave. I was a teaching assistant for a world geography class at a US university. During a lesson on Africa, a student raised her hand. She asked, "I'm a little confused. Is Africa a country or a continent? Because I hear about all these different places like Nigeria and Egypt, but then people just say Africa like it's one big place. Which one is it?" When I confirmed it was a continent with 54 countries, she looked shocked and said, "Wow, they should really advertise that more. It's very confusing for us." While visiting the Louvre, I saw an American family standing in front of the Mona Lisa. The father was squinting at it and said, "It's so small. I don't get the hype." His teenage daughter then added, "And why isn't she smiling more? She looks kind of bored. If I was getting my picture painted, I'd at least try to look happy. It's like she has no personality." They took a quick selfie with it and walked away, complaining that the museum was too big and didn't have enough escalators. I once had to explain to an American co-worker that the United Kingdom and England were not the same thing. He was planning a trip and told me he was going to drive all over England, visiting London, then heading up to Edinburgh in Scotland and over to Belfast in Northern Ireland. I gently pointed out that his trip would take him to 3 different countries. He argued with me, saying, "No, they're all on the same island, and they all have the Queen. It's all England. You're just being picky with the names." An American tourist in my hometown of Florence, Italy, stopped me on the street and asked where he could find the best deep dish pizza. I explained that deep dish pizza is an American style, specifically from Chicago, and that in Italy, we have our own traditional styles. He looked genuinely disappointed and said, "But you guys invented pizza. How can you not have the best version of it? It's like you stopped trying to improve it. That's a real shame." He then asked if I knew where the nearest Domino's was. I was on a boat tour of Halong Bay in Vietnam. An American woman on the tour was talking to our guide. She said, "This is all very beautiful, but it's a little undeveloped. You know, in America, we would have built a big resort on one of these islands with a golf course and a water park. You guys are sitting on a gold mine and not taking advantage of it. You should really think about commercializing this more." The guide, whose family had lived in the area for generations, just gave a sad smile. My cousin married an American and moved to Texas. When we visited her, Her husband took us to a gun range. He was trying to explain gun culture to us and said with a straight face, "The reason we need guns is because we're the only truly free country. In Europe, you guys gave up your guns, and now you're all oppressed by your governments. We have them to make sure our government never gets too powerful." He couldn't understand that we felt perfectly free without needing a personal arsenal. I worked in a hotel in Iceland during the winter. An American guest came to the front desk around 11 a.m., looking very upset. He complained, "The sun isn't up yet, it's almost noon. Is there something wrong with it today?" I had to explain the concept of the polar night and how, due to the Earth's tilt, the sun barely rises in winter this far north. He looked at me with suspicion and said, "That doesn't sound right. The sun comes up every morning at the same time everywhere. I think your government is hiding something." An American I met while backpacking was convinced that soccer, football, was a new sport that was only becoming popular because of American influence. He said, "It's cool that the rest of the world is finally getting into soccer. We've been playing it in schools for years, and now, with our pro league, it's really taking off globally. You guys should be thankful we're helping to make it a major world sport." The group of Brazilians and Germans he was talking to were too stunned to even reply. I was on a train from Brussels to Amsterdam. An American sitting next to me was looking at a map. He turned to me and said, "It's so weird how close all these countries are. In the US, you can drive for 12 hours and still be in the same state. Here, you drive for 2 hours and you've gone through 3 countries. Don't you guys get nervous being so close to each other all the time? What if you accidentally cross the border? It seems really stressful." A tourist at the Acropolis in Athens asked the guide, "So all these old Greek guys like Socrates and Plato, did they speak Greek?" The guide confirmed that they did. The tourist then asked, "But how did they write all their philosophy down if the Greek alphabet is just for fraternities? Like alpha, beta, gamma, that's for college parties, right?" The guide had to take a very deep breath before explaining the origins of the Greek alphabet. I had an American customer in my cheese shop in Switzerland. He asked to sample some Gruyere. After trying it, he said, "This is okay, but it doesn't taste anything like the Swiss cheese I get back home. Yours doesn't even have the holes in it." Are you sure this is the real stuff? It feels like you guys are making the cheap version for the locals and exporting the good, holy stuff to America. I tried to explain that Swiss cheese is an American term for a specific type, but he wasn't having it. My university roommate from California was looking at a globe for the first time in our dorm room. He spun it around a few times and then stopped it with his finger on Russia. He looked at me with wide eyes and said, "Whoa, I never realized how big Russia is. It's like huge. Why do they need all that land? It seems really greedy. The United States should have some of that. It's only fair to split it up more evenly."